Hello, and thank you for joining us for this presentation of the Empire Space Virtual Town Hall inaugurating Space Day New York from May 25th, 2023. We will provide a brief introduction and overview of what happened on Space Day, New York this past year, and then we will take you to the full video from the town hall itself. A recap of the day's events. This video is of the Empire Space Virtual Town Hall, which took place at 6 p.m. The day opened with a sponsored meeting of SSPI WISE, that's the Society of Satellite Professionals International, Women in Space Engagement. They had an open meeting. It was absolutely fantastic. 1 p.m., we had a 2024 Eclipse information session with Dan Schneiderman from the Rochester Museum and Science Center. 2 p.m., we had an interview with Grant Blaisdell from Copernic Space about space finance and digital assets. And then 4 p.m., we had a STEAM workshop with NASA Ambassador Robin Vernuccio for kids age 6 to 11 on telescopes and space science. That was absolutely fantastic. So a broad range of groups engaged throughout the day with a number of different formats that we were very excited about. So the team behind Empire Space, I am Patrick Chase, co-founder, based out of Rochester, background in political science, political communications, and government. Evan Lerner, co-founder from New York City, background in aerospace engineering. Third board member, Casey Sloan from Saratoga Springs, BA in political science as well. This is the team behind Empire Space that has brought you the first Space Day New York. Sponsors of Space Day New York, this day would not have happened without them. We are incredibly grateful for their contributions. The NASA New York Space Grant Consortium, you will hear from them at the end of the town hall. They are NASA's official chapter in the state. They do a lot of fantastic work in the academic pipeline. The New York Space Business Roundtable is actually put on by SSPI, who was the first event of the day. That's a fantastic series. Please look into that. Rocket Star at the bottom right, headquartered in New York, doing a lot of really innovative work in the rocket space. Space Rig there in the middle there, an up-and-coming satellite manufacturer also based in New York. Copernic Space, who is part of the Space Day festivities, working in that digital asset marketplace, a lot of really innovative stuff happening with them. And then Columbia Space Initiative, one of the premier higher education space groups in the state. We are incredibly proud to have all of these folks on board supporting us, lending us their expertise, insight, their platform as we put together this event. So what is Space Day New York? Space Day New York is, first off, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to celebrate New York's history in space while laying the groundwork for the future. There's so much that people aren't aware of that New York has contributed to the space age so far. There's also so much potential for the system to grow in the future. So it's primarily an opportunity to highlight that. It's also a chance to plan how to take New York from a top 15 space state to the top 10. Requires greater integration, visibility, including legislatively in Albany. Space Day is an attempt to make that happen. There's tremendous potential for job growth and new academic and civic programming. We see Space Day as an opportunity to bring those networks together, to start talking about that kind of programming and how to bring that into reality, combat some of that fragmentation and underperformance that we see all too often across the sector. So it's an opportunity. Broadly, Space Day is a chance to take pride in our past, acknowledge the strengths and weaknesses of our present, and build a plan for a bright future. The top takeaways from Space Day New York 2023 was a full day of programming. It ran from late morning into the evening. Over all of the different events, we had over 100 participants from all the different regions of New York, which is really fantastic to see. Including experienced stakeholders, well-connected folks, and interested people, average citizens who were just interested and stopped by. Wide range of programming, Eclipse, STEAM workshops, space finance, and digital assets. So we spoke to a broad audience, deepened key partnerships, critical stakeholders across the state with an eye towards future programming and collaborations. There's future events coming down the pipeline this year. We're already working towards Space Day 2024. Please reach out to us if you're interested in joining this effort next time around. You are already watching this video on YouTube, but please share this playlist, other videos, other content to help spread the message from Space Day New York 2023. And now we will take you to the full town hall presentation from Empire Space, where we kind of detail the story behind Space Day behind the New York space sector, where we see things going forward. There's a couple of guest presentations that we hope you will enjoy, as well as some food for thought for the future. So again, thank you very much for joining us, and enjoy the presentation. So New York Space Legacy, before I turn it over to Evan for the next section, I really just want to hammer home our roots in space. So early aviation grew up on Long Island. It was one of the closest places to fly to Europe. So aviation got a foothold in New York from the dawn of powered flight. It grew throughout the 30s and 40s and 50s into not only the broader aviation, but the early aerospace sector. And then on May 25th, 1961, 62 years ago today, when JFK stood in front of Congress and challenged America to land a man on the moon, the company that was awarded the contract to build the lunar landers, the Grumman Corporation, was located here on Long Island, part of that aviation and aerospace legacy. So right now on the moon, in the remains of those landers that are still there, somewhere buried inside, there's a little plaque on each one of them that says "Made in New York." We think that is just one of the coolest contributions that we have had to the space age, and we think that should be a larger part of the story of space here in New York. People should be aware of that. It should be a part of every kindergartner's curriculum, across the state, and it's not. We should change that. Another component is astronauts. New York has contributed a lot of astronauts to the space program. A number of people, a number of firsts, a number of historic firsts from across the state. There are also significant contributions from space research and exploration institutions, Cornell, Columbia, Brookhaven, University of Buffalo. So we have a lot of these high wattage research and academic nodes that contribute to the broader space ecosystem. NASA has a facility at the state at Columbia University. Their Goddard Institute for Space Studies does a lot of their climate work. So NASA has a footprint here. There is an associated economic impact from NASA as well. And at the end of the day, the space sector here employs tens of thousands of New Yorkers. It's not the largest part of our economy, but it is a significant part. And so that is kind of the legacy, the history from the dawn of the space age up until today that got us to where we are. So for a little bit more about our updates, what we've been doing, I'm going to turn the floor over to my co-founder, Evan Lerner.
Thanks, Pat. Yeah, so I think a few things to delve into, some updates on our end. Before the main updates, we wanted to highlight a key resource that those of you that I guess have worked with us in the past are probably already familiar with. The census, this is our database of all of the stakeholders in the space industry in New York State. So we've tried to index across this entire industry from the private sector, all of the space companies, the finance side, the companies that are funding space companies, both within the state and outside of the state, and then also the civic sector companies like ourselves, the legislative side, sort of aligning the legislative districts against all of these stakeholders, the academic sector, including colleges and universities, K-12, et cetera, and then also the New Yorkers that have gone to space, many of them astronauts. So we've tried to capture all of this data, identify all of these stakeholders. We've published this publicly on our website, empirespace.org/data. We encourage everyone to go and check it out, start to engage with these stakeholders, find who's near you, who you want to, you want to interact with. Please reach out to us if you have any questions, if there's anyone you want an introduction to. We're happy to do that as well. So I wanted to highlight this. We'll talk more about this later. We're constantly updating this, so there are always updates within the census, new data that we're putting out, and new stakeholders that we're identifying and adding. I guess to take a step back, the purpose of this is to document and expose the deep network that does exist here. This is the first thing that we did at Empire Space. We ourselves had to figure out who was here. And once we did that, we realized that pretty much no one else knew, I guess, the depth of this and who else was here. So we made this publicly available, as I said, to try to improve that. And then I guess just sort of, there's a link at the bottom there to explore it. We can also drop a link in the chat, and there's that hyperlink at the top as well. We encourage everyone to explore this, learn who's around you, and sort of who you want to interact with. Some key updates on our end. We have interns. We have some very productive interns. In fact, we'll talk about some of their work in the next few slides, but we've taken on a bunch of interns, and they've been doing some great things. We've been networking a lot. Pat has talked a little bit about the events that we went to. So, there's been a lot of activity as far as us going out and meeting people and just improving our network within New York, within the space industry here. We've made a Slack channel based on popular demand, a lot of requests for us to make the Slack channel. So put this out, taking in our feedback. We've been adding people to it. It's been pretty productive. I think a lot of good conversations, awareness around sort of what's happening here, introducing people to each other, et cetera. So that's been great. If you want to join that, you reach out to us. Happy to add you. Obviously, Space Day New York, you're here. Welcome. This is a huge event for us. We'll talk more about what Space Day New York 2023 is, and also going forward the next Space Days. But we're really excited about this, and this is certainly one of our bigger updates. Some new reports out, including some work from our interns. And then we've also added a donation function or an improved donation function on our website. So there's a bunch of different ways to donate to Empire Space now, which we're obviously internally very excited about. Once again, link to the town hall discussion here if you have anything you want to add, any questions, feedback, any of that. Some highlights from our team, the interns that we were talking about. A number of outstanding contributions, two that we're going to highlight. One from Serena Sidlow, a student at CCNY School of Engineering. She's done a number of in-depth reports on New Yorkers who've gone to space or astronauts. That's published in the report titled right there. And then there's one from Ayusha Singh, student at the National Institute of Technology in Srinagar, India. She did an in-depth analysis of the ties between the private sector and NASA, published under that name there as well. Both available on our website under the report section. They're both asking to stay on board, which we're really excited about. This is our first time sort of spinning up this intern program. So we're excited that it's been so productive and I guess engaging for these interns that they want to stick around and continue doing projects with us. Yeah, so if I guess on the flip side of that, if you have any interest in being a part of this program or contributing at Empire Space, please reach out to either one of us. Our emails are listed there at the bottom, evan@empirespace.org or patrick@empirespace.org. To dive into some of the events that we've been at recently, and I talked a little about the networking activity that we've had. So these are 8 of our more recent events that we've gone to. A good mix between the two, I guess, hubs that Pat and I work out of, myself in New York City and then Pat in Rochester. So a nice spread between the two of them. We've been pretty active engaging with stakeholders, identifying new ones, connecting people, etc. Those events are listed here. Obviously, Space Day New York, listed right there at the bottom right, today's event. And there will be many more. We'll highlight some of our upcoming events as well. As far as getting involved, being a part of this network, engaging with Empire Space, there's tons of different ways. I touched on this already. You can join our Slack channel, reach out to Pat or I if you're interested in that. On our website, empirespace.org/get involved, we have a ton of key resources to get involved with us as well as in the space sector. In New York, we have a calendar, a NASA ambassador database, social media, etc. You can attend, local events, virtual or in person near you. We have some of those on our calendar. We encourage you to find ones yourself. Tell us about them. We'll make sure to promote them as well. So there's a lot of hopefully programming happening near you that you're able to engage with. We're also going to be putting out a lot more programming as well for people to engage with. You can sign up for our newsletter. Email us info@empirespace or my email or Pat's for that. And please spread the word, family, friends, community members, etc., about New York, the space industry here, the story of it, the history, and the potential future that we have here. I'm going to pass it back over to Pat, but not before we show a video from one of our sponsors, the Columbia Space Initiative. This is a nice short video that sort of introduces them and all the incredible work that they're doing. So play this, and then I'll pass it back over to Pat. All right. Hopefully everyone's really hyped. I'm passing it back over to Pat.
Yeah, that was awesome. If you thought you saw me dancing, you 100% did. That was very catchy. That was an awesome video. Again, thank you to Columbia Space Initiative and all of our sponsors who have joined us here today. So now we're going to take a little tour of the New York space ecosystem. Like I said before, we have uncovered so much information. When Evan and I started working, we asked ourselves the question, who is doing space in New York? We thought it was going to be a fairly straightforward question. Our census now has more than 1,000 entries across it. It's a sprawling database. We've learned a lot. We're still learning a lot. It would be possible for us to talk for the next 2 hours straight if we wanted to, and try to keep it to like 10 minutes. We will see how well I do. So high level summary, the high points, what are we doing well here? We're a space finance powerhouse, depending on whatever metric you use. New York is first or second in terms of being a source for space finance. Most of that money winds up leaving the state, which is a problem, but we have it to begin with, which is something. We have a very nice, a broad statewide civic network. We have a lot of great community groups, planetariums, museums, observatories. And in looking in other states, we identified that these types of groups are critically important. They often foster a lot of that cross-sector networking between academia, business, and government. Those civic groups, those nonprofits are critically important to a healthy statewide space ecosystem, and we have a lot of them here. We have that academic and research infrastructure. We have powerhouse universities that are already doing fantastic work. We have K through 12 schools that are part of the space pipeline. So we have the components for a really productive K through college space pipeline here. And we do have that baseline NASA presence. We'll go into the details a little bit further. But again, that's something that not every state has in the quantity that we necessarily have it here. So the areas to focus on are those finance barriers. A lot of that money exists on Wall Street or firms on Wall Street and goes to finance space ecosystems in Florida, Texas, California, New Mexico. So we need to find ways to loop some of that back into investing here in New York. There are gaps in the environment network resources. So the ecosystem is not evenly spread throughout the state. There are certain regions that don't have access to certain capabilities. There are lots of connections that aren't being made between potential partners that could be maximizing a lot of growth. So there's definitely a lot of clustering and fragmentation. That's kind of one of our big takeaways. One of the most common things that we get when we meet a new stakeholder is, oh, I had no idea that all of this was going on. So there's that lack of awareness within the space ecosystem itself. So that's something we need to combat as well. And we visualize it there on the right. These loops aren't complete. And our goal is to find ways to complete the loops. So we have the space talent, we have the civic sector, we have the academic component, we have the finance. We need to find ways to plug those in together with the economic engine, with the startups, attracting existing businesses here, helping new businesses flourish here. That's the component that we need to start making connections around. So money and students are leaving the state. We need to close the loop. That's kind of the high level picture that we have here. Then that will lead to economic growth in the future. So on the left side, you see data by region. We break the state into 10 regions. This is the same mapping framework that the state economic development organization uses. It's a much easier way to kind of visualize and analyze the state. Plus, these different regional space ecosystems are very different from each other. You can see on the table off to the right, we have all the different regions with the different categories. A couple of major takeaways: every region is represented. So the space ecosystem does exist in every corner of the state. Every part of New York has something going on, whether it be companies, academic infrastructure, civic infrastructure, but you can also see that it's very clustered. New York City and Long Island quite obviously dominate, as they do in many things in New York. But you can also see up there on the top left, the Western New York and Finger Lakes region does have a decent sized level of activity on its own. So those are some of the major takeaways from the regional analysis. Space companies themselves, mapping that activity statewide. Again, it is present in every region. That huge blue line there is the Long Island aerospace industry in visual form. That is the legacy aerospace companies that spawned out of that early aviation age and have stuck around. A lot of the major contractors have relocated their operations further south, but a lot of the family secondary aerospace shops that set up around them are still here, and that's what that is. Some of the highlights, the top line numbers. We look at it in 3 different categories. There's roughly 200 plus companies in the database. Tracking employment isn't as straightforward as you would necessarily like it to be. There's a couple different estimates or ways you can kind of tackle that problem. Our best estimate is a total space and aerospace sector employment in the state of roughly 40 to 60,000. We always work to refine that number, but that is our highest educated range at the moment. Major categories: aerospace manufacturing, again, Long Island, telecommunications, and electronics. There is a decent sized Space Force and military component here as well. And space data, we think is an area to keep an eye on in the future for potentially significant growth. And again, that regional breakdown, New York City and Long Island, and then Western New York and Finger Lakes being the dominant nodes there. Again, this is kind of a pie chart breakdown of the different categories of companies. So you see the aerospace is half the pie, but the other half is much more diverse. Space data firms, there's a couple of space tourism firms, space habitat, space journalism. So there is some diversity to the New York space ecosystem. Our goal is to find ways to kind of grow the size of these pies, add more entities to some of these smaller categories, while adding new slices to the pie, attracting new subsets of the space economy here. The second major component of New York's contributions to the broader space sector is the astronauts. 29 New Yorkers have gone to space. They've spent more than 3 years, 9 months collectively away from the Earth. Most of them were NASA astronauts. Some of them were private citizens. You can see the major historic firsts that they accomplished while they were out there. The first mother in space, pictured at right, Anna Lee Fisher. First private citizen in space, Dennis Tito was a New Yorker. The first female shuttle commander, Eileen Collins. First live tweet sent from space was sent by a New Yorker. First pilot of a crewed private spacecraft, Doug Hurley, who was the pilot of the first SpaceX Dragon, is from Binghamton. So New Yorkers have been on the leading edge of exploring space since the very beginning. One of our 2 major intern contributions, highlighted by our intern Serena Sidlow here, has been telling the story of these New Yorkers in space. And she actually did a really interesting report on the active NASA astronauts. So there are currently 40 active NASA astronauts, and looking at their different connections to New York. And you can see that here on the table below. 2 astronauts were born here. Jeanette Epps, who is hoping to go to space soon. She's been stuck in line on the Boeing Starliner for quite some time now. Doug Wheelock from Binghamton spent some time aboard the International Space Station. Then we have Jasmine Mabelli, who wasn't born in New York, but she grew up here. She's actually scheduled to go up later this year in just a couple months in August. New York's top tier universities have attracted people here who went on to become astronauts. Josh Casada went to my alma mater, U of R, just was on the International Space Station last year. Reed Weissman, who some of you may know is the commander of Artemis II that is going to the moon next year, went to the Rensselaer Polytech Institute in the Capital Region. And then there are 3 astronauts who served at West Point. Andrew Morgan, Frank Rubio, who is currently aboard the International Space Station, and Mark Vande Hei. So not only are there a number of active NASA astronauts who are tied to New York, they're tied here through a number of different ways. And we think that's kind of emblematic of some of the diversity of the New York space ecosystem. Whether you're from here, whether you come here to serve in the military, or because of college, there are paths to space for you here. So the NASA footprints, this was the second contribution from our intern, Ayusha Singh. She's done a great job mapping the ties between New York businesses and NASA. They conduct a lot of their climate research at the Goddard Institute at Columbia University. By NASA's own economic reports, they issue an annual economic report. In 2021, NASA activity totaled over $530 million in the state of New York and supported over 2,300 jobs. Both of these ranked 15th nationally. So New York is the 15th largest state in terms of NASA footprint. We've mapped 37 private companies with NASA ties that operate at 70 different individual sites. Some of them have more than one location. And again, there is geographic diversity to this. They're not all clustered in one region. Every part of New York does have some skin in the NASA game. So to kind of wrap up, Long Island in the lunar age, we've talked about them a couple different times. This was kind of the first peak of the New York space ecosystem back in the 60s, when we were critically integral to the Apollo program and building the lunar landers because of the density of talent here on Long Island. So it's always just so cool to think about, still today and forever, sitting on the surface of the moon, buried in the innards of the rocket stages that were left over there. There are little plaques that say "Made in New York." We think that is just an absolutely phenomenal contribution. And again, we don't think this contribution is discussed enough. As the industry atrophied in the 70s and 80s and relocated to the South, we seem to have kind of forgotten this story as a state. And we think this needs to be championed more loudly, especially because the industry still has a significant impact in the state. The legacy of this moment is still here, employing tens of thousands of people across the state. And there's nothing to say that kind of growth and contribution has to be in the past. There's no reason that we can't do that again. So yeah, to recap the story of space, the space ecosystem is statewide. Every corner of the state is participating in some way, shape, or form. New York's contributions to the broader space age are much larger than many people realize, and we think we need to be telling that story more often. New York is already a top 15 space state, which many people probably don't know, but it's possible to move even higher. If we wanted to be a top 10 space state, we have the capacity, we have the resources, we have the legacy, we have the tools. All it takes is the vision and the investment and the action to come together as a state to say that this is something that is important to us, that we want this to be a priority for New York, that we think that this should be a part of New York's story in the 21st century. This is a state that's well known for reinventing itself time and time again, and we think that space should be a part of this next chapter. And everyone has a role to play. People often think that they have nothing to do, they can't do anything in the space sector, and that can't be further from the truth. Whether contributing to different groups, advertising, promoting, especially as the sector grows and diversifies, there are so many pathways for people to contribute. So that is the quick and dirty version of the New York space ecosystem. So our vision, to kind of turn it again towards the future in terms of specific things that we think would be important for the state in the months and years ahead. We think a startup incubator or accelerator to help anchor new businesses in New York would be critically important. We've heard that from a couple different corners, that kind of resource would be important here. We need new supports and resources for existing companies. Even in the short time that we've been operational, we've noticed space and aerospace firms who have left the state, taking that expertise, taking those connections, taking those jobs, that economic activity elsewhere. We need to find ways to reinforce existing businesses so that stops happening. Refining, expanding, and kind of fine-tuning the K through college academic pipeline, making sure that businesses are communicating what they need to academia, make sure that academia is attuned and responding to that. We also know how important it is, especially for space careers and STEM, for people to get involved and educated young. So finding ways to engage elementary and middle school students with space and STEM, so that they know it's a viable career path, not just elsewhere, but it's a viable career path here in New York. That is a critically important circle to complete. Build out more robust connections between the space finance component in New York City and the broader space ecosystem, whether that's through networking, communication, funding opportunities. We need to find ways to kind of break down some of those barriers. Turning again to that civic sector, those are the ambassadors. Like I said before, we've identified them as critical components for fostering those connections between different components, between business and government and academia. So making sure that they are supported, that they're growing, that they have the megaphone they need to attract interest, to engage the public. And then finally, involved and aware partners in state and local governments. For a state as high as we are in the rankings, in terms of 15, when you look at the 14 states ahead of us, their state and local governments are far, far, far more involved with the space sector in terms of understanding its importance to their state's economy, being responsive to needs, to identifying solutions. In almost every state we've studied, it tends to be one of the few bipartisan issues, and we think those kind of supports are just critically important for future growth. So those are kind of some of the specific lanes that we see growth in moving forward. So now I have talked, I think, long enough. We're going to turn it back over to Evan to talk a little bit more about specific things for the future, and then we're going to see if we have a word from the NASA New York Space Grant.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah. So I think, we've talked a lot about the New York space sector, some about Space Day 2023. I think to reiterate, this Space Day and sort of the purpose of this is really just to bring people together, to bring awareness to what does exist here, establish Space Day within the state of New York. This is the first one to ever happen in New York. So that's really what today was about. It was about sort of establishing things and bringing awareness and setting up for Space Day 2024 and Space Day New York moving forward. So with that, what are we going to do with the info that we presented so far today? We continue to find new partners, make new connections, find ways to amplify and promote the stakeholders here. Continue, but really in some ways begin acting systematically statewide, trying to create, a full-on statewide approach to things as opposed to what it's been so far, which has been very fragmented and localized. And then start to really think about and act on and plan for Space Day 2024. We're thinking this could be a proper lobbying day with a massive media event, a much larger in-person presence. So a lot of plans and ideas, and we would love to see Space Day 2024 be a lot more action-oriented and focused on bringing actual change within New York space. Some upcoming events to highlight. There's the 5th Summit for Space Sustainability from the Secure World Foundation, June 13th to 14th. This is in New York City. So this is a space event in the city. We're really excited about this. This should message against and sort of play well against a lot of the topics that we've talked about throughout Space Day today. And will hopefully dovetail nicely with a lot of the efforts that we have within the New York space industry and at Empire Space. So we encourage everyone to go to this event. I'll be there. And I'm looking forward to it. We're planning some in-person events for Empire Space, hopefully one in the fall. So we're going to continue to work on that. I guess stay tuned for more info there. And let's start to plan Space Day New York 2024. We have a couple slides on this. So the first thing for Space Day 2024, we're going to put a working group together. We would like for this to be a full event, in quotes. We would like a proper lobbying presence in Albany. We would like to have a lot more in-person events around this day. We would like the events to be a lot more diverse and focused on the various segments that there are within the space industry, not just STEM, but things like art contests, workshops, etc. So we'd like to really engage the full breadth of the industry and different kinds of stakeholders. Worth mentioning, we for this Space Day reached out to a really large portion of our census, trying to engage and activate like a huge part of this network. But for Space Day 2024, we'd like to get, I guess, even more engaged with the various parts of the census and try to really make contact with and get a large part of that network involved in Space Day 2024. We have an interest form for Space Day 2024, so we'll drop that in the chat. If you are interested in being a part of this, part of the working group or otherwise, let us know. You can also just reach out to us at the various forms of like email and whatnot that we've already listed. But yeah, we're very excited about this and hoping to make Space Day 2024 great. So when NASA New York Space Grant joins us, we'll pass it back over to them. They have some words that they want to present. I don't think they're with us yet, so we can open this up to a discussion now. A few key things to say. Be sure to stay in touch. Slack, if you want to join our Slack channel, we messaged on that earlier. Please let us know. Happy to add you. You can find us on Twitter, email as well. We have our emails that we provided. Start thinking about next year. Join the Space Day working group. Start thinking about Space Day 2024, the various events we have coming up. And the other events that we've advertised. and then keep working hard, spreading the word about space in New York. You know, telling your friends, family, etc., about what is happening here, and sort of making sure that we are continuing to grow and engage this community. Once again, a forum here for the town hall discussion. If you want to leave your feedback or thoughts or questions in there, we appreciate it.
I did just want to interrupt real quick to give a shout out. Mike Cassandra from Rocket Star has to leave. One of our sponsors. We just wanted to acknowledge him. They've been absolutely fantastic throughout the entire time that we've been operational here at Empire Space. They're great. They're very active on Slack. So before Mike dips out, I just wanted to give him a shout out. Thank you very much for your contributions, man.
Thank you guys. Very much appreciate it. And I'm really glad to see everybody that turned out today. And like I said in the message, I'm excited for next year already, man.
Awesome. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mike.
Back to you, Evan. Sorry.
No, that's all I got. So I think we're going to open it up to a discussion now. If anyone has anything that they want to talk about, feel free to drop it in the chat. You could raise your hand. I think there was a lot. So if anyone, thoughts or questions on the data we presented, anything to say for Space Day 2024, the other upcoming events, platform is yours.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I was thinking too, like for some of your events. Sorry, I'm trying to get my camera. For some of your events, can you see me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, okay. If y'all maybe established a meetup, and that would even, I think, attract a greater community. Yeah, I don't know if y'all are familiar with that platform, but it's specifically catered. It's to help people who with genuine common interest to gather together or whatever. So it could be a format to use. I think there is a small fee associated. It used to be free, but I think there is a small fee associated with it now. Yeah, that's just a thought that came to mind.
Nice. Thank you. We always enjoy those suggestions for new platforms, especially as we look to build out. At some point, we would like to bring on someone to do social media and stuff full time. So just quick job drop there for anyone in the future who's interested in that. But no, thank you for pointing that out. You had mentioned that at one of the earlier sessions. So thank you again specifically.
Oh, I mentioned Moondao at the earlier session.
Okay, yes, that's right. Anyways, I think we have a new guest right on time.
Yeah. Welcome, Alex.
Hello. How's it going?
How you doing, man?
Good.
Yeah.
Could be better.
This is Alex Young, representing the NASA New York Space Grant. We've mentioned them a couple times. They're one of our key sponsors today. I think they had some materials that they wanted to present. I will relinquish presenting and let Alex present some materials on the Space Grant, and then we can open it back up for a discussion. Anything else, I guess. In the meantime, people start thinking about if you got any questions or things you want to talk about for after their presentation.
All right. So just getting my PowerPoint to load. I just finished my long travel day. I'm actually in LA right now. Outside of New York Space Grant, I am a professional athlete. So this is the reason why I am so far away. So bear with me 1 second while my PowerPoint loads. But I'll give you my introduction. So I am Alex Young. I'm the program coordinator for New York Space Grant. We are a program based out of the Office of STEM Engagement at NASA. And we are currently based at Cornell University. So it's myself. We have an associate director named Megan Surdock, and our director is Mason Peck, and we work out of the Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering Department over at Cornell. So I will share my screen. I've never actually shared my screen on this before. Let's see. Okay, I think I got it.
I also, for everyone's reference, I dropped the link to the NASA New York Space Grant in the chat, and Evan dropped the Google form if anyone has questions.
All right, so I got my screen sharing.
caught me in a fantastic facial freeze there.
All right, I'm trying to see. Is my PowerPoint pulling up for everyone?
Not yet, Alex. I'm seeing like a mirrored screen thing going on.
Odd. Okay, let me see. Try this again. Mm.
Yeah, I just put while we're waiting, I just put a bunch of links into the chat for things that we referenced today, including the Space Day 2024 interest form. If anyone's interested, please fill that out. Town hall discussion form. If you have any questions or thoughts or feedback during this town hall, you can drop them in there, or once again, you're able to just put them in the chat or wherever. And then I also sent a link for the 5th Summit for Space Sustainability.
Is it still showing the mirror screen, Evan?
Yeah. Do you want me to present the slides that you sent?
Yes, that'd be perfect. I'm not sure what's going on here.
No worries. I got it. Yeah, give me one moment.
We are deeply integrated into Google here.
Oh yeah.
That was especially in terms of like meeting size and duration compared to Zoom, especially because we use Google for everything else. So we are big fans of Google Meet.
Understood. Yeah,
Sorry.
we use Zoom here, so.
All right.
Now I'm getting it up. Give me 1 second.
We're waiting on you, Evan.
Yeah, I know. It's a PowerPoint. I'm just going to present the rendering from Gmail. So I guess this will have to do. How's this looking?
Yeah, that's good. That's perfect. So again, this is our emails on there on that first slide there. It's nyspacegrant@cornell.edu if you have any further questions after this, and I'll be sure to repeat that again. I'm at the end of this. All right. So New York Space Grant, what we are is we're part of a larger national space grant program for NASA, as I spoke about before. So we're comprised of universities, aerospace industry partners at the federal, state, and local level. We just basically look to fund and support state-specific education, research, and public engagement projects. And we look to contribute to the nation's science enterprise through STEM education and workforce development. So our consortium specifically, we have 19 higher education affiliates, 2 central school districts, 3 informal education affiliates. So those are museums, science centers, and 6 industry affiliates that work together to create the opportunities that we have, and collectively they create the New York Space Grant Consortium. So the impacts of our programs are actually pretty wide spanning. Our director, Mason, he loves to say that we are NASA in New York. Some people obviously, GIS is there, but we really are another major contributor for NASA and their priorities here in New York. So we've supported over 22,000 students, whether that's internships or research and other programming. 98% of those students that we funded have returned and remained in STEM after graduation. 51% of those students are women and underrepresented minorities. And so here's a few examples of our programming. Again, we do summer internships at NASA centers and industry partners. We also do, again, those summer undergraduate research conferences. We have virtual astronomy nights at Intrepid, which they started during COVID, and they were streaming on Twitch. However, they decided to continue doing these. And so we get a lot of outreach that way. So our programming and impact really try to focus on better development of the STEM pipeline across New York State. So we have a system in which individuals, if they are part of the consortium, we call them affiliates. So these are typically our academic affiliates and other members. And so here's a few examples of the opportunities that we have directly from our office. But I will make note that NASA also provides other solicitations that we usually have access to that allow people that are in the consortium to have a first sneak peek, first, whatever you want to call it, opportunity to place an application for those solicitations. So we break down our opportunities based on faculty opportunities, student opportunities, and general opportunities. So those general opportunities, the biggest one that we mostly focus on, and I know it's biggest, but it's the New York Space Grant Opportunity Grant. It's $2,000. Anyone from any institution can apply for this grant, whether you're a student, whether you are a faculty member, you can apply for this grant, and that's $2,000. Super easy application. And Minju is actually one of those recipients. She's on the call, and that's all she just mentioned her comment there. So that's one of the believers in the small grant. Student opportunities, we have quite a few. We have the Minorities in STEM Fellowship, we have the Women in STEM Fellowship, and the New York Space Grant Student Support Fellowship. Again, those are more opportunities for people who are involved as academic affiliates. And then same for the faculty opportunities. So the faculty fellowship, the faculty grants for research, and curriculum development all follow under those lines of an academic affiliate. But again, the New York Space Grant Opportunity Grant, anyone can apply as long as they're a student at a New York State institution or is a New York resident. And then roughly every 4 years, affiliates come, and if you're part of the consortia, we ask for RFP, and basically that's your proposal to get base funding for multiple years from us. So on the other side of the academic affiliates portion, we have industry partners. So our industry partners, right now we have Ursa, Moog, and Lockheed Martin at the moment. But these industry partners, what they've said that they've agreed to is a 10-week, 400-hour summer internship. And these mirror our NASA Center internships as well. So students will get paid a direct stipend for $7,300 in the summer. These industry partners usually require a cost share letter, and it basically reports mentorship hours, office space, and lab access. Industry partners can pick their own interns, or they can opt to have us do it. And again, this is roughly once every 4 years. Consortium will again to renew its grant from NASA through the proposal process, very similar to the academic affiliates. So very briefly, you can always go to our website, and I put it towards the bottom, and it's www. I'm not sure why the G's cut off, maybe because we're going out of the email, but it's www.nySpaceGrant.org, and I know Patrick plugged it in the comments section. But you can visit all of our tabs, the home and about. They'll give you a bunch of more information on what we do. If you go to the K through 12, it's a bunch of STEM education materials for K through 12, affiliates, things of that matter. If you check it out, you'll see everything you need to know. And if not, feel free to email us again at nySpaceGrant@cornell.edu. So here briefly, I'm just going to give you a quick synopsis of how to get involved. If this is of interest to you in your institution, if you'd like to join the consortia. There's 4 quick steps. So if you are interested in becoming a part of the New York Space Grant Consortia, you really only have to submit a letter requesting affiliation to us, which again is nySpaceGrant@cornell.edu. Once we get your letter, which includes a rationale for acceptance of the applicant to become a New York Space Grant academic affiliate or industry partner, whichever one seems fit for you. What we do is we'll present this request to the consortia. So all of our 30 members in the consortia will vote on your acceptance to become a new affiliate. And so there must be a 66% affirmative vote to be accepted. And once that happens, hopefully you're accepted. Everybody's yay, you're on board. We will mentor new affiliates to ensure that all grant requirements are met. And so typically we create a subaward for each affiliate, and they kind of follow along those very important contractual agreements there. And we walk you through every single last piece of that and how, and other ways in which we can help you grow your program, etc. So 2 quick notes. This process happens twice a year. And there's a deadline to submit your letter requesting affiliation beginning on 6/1 and 12/1 of each year. So we have 2, that's very much a bi-yearly thing. So get your applications in before those if you're interested, or if you have questions, feel free to ask us first. And then we can also help you in terms of your affiliation letter if you need that. And so the last slide is feel free to visit our website. There's the QR code for you. And I'm sure Evan and Patrick, if you would not mind, if you're going to disperse this information out to everyone here today, we give you total permission to share this piece along with everyone else so they can get in contact with us. But that's all for me.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. I knew a lot about you guys. We've met a number of times before. I learned a couple new things during that. Like, that's awesome. You guys are a fantastic resource, especially for, I know you weren't here for the earlier part, but we had touched on the importance of the academic pipeline. And it really is important, the role that you guys play there. So now we're tipping up on 1 hour in. There's no time limit on this. I am willing to stick around. Everyone's willing to stick around and answer questions on any component of the census, on anything we discussed tonight. People have questions for Alex. If there's anyone from another group who wants to give a shout out or something right now, we leave this floor open for discussion. So who has anything that they would like to talk about? Go ahead, Carrie.
Hi, Alex, I was just wondering if you could just tell us a little bit more about the individual grant.
Are
Like
you
the
talking
one-
about the opportunity grant?
Yeah, the one for the person.
Okay,
Yeah.
absolutely.
as
Yeah,
opposed to
so
the institution.
yes. So the opportunity grant, again, that's for any students or faculty with any, I guess, research or travel, anything related to a NASA priority kind of like field. I'm trying to explain this the best way I can. It's really vague, so that's why it's kind of difficult to narrow it down. But in essence, it really gives you an opportunity if you're working on a research project, curriculum development activity, anything that honestly involves STEM and it involves NASA's priorities or mission directorates, we can pretty much fund it. So an example, Minju, she actually put her comment in here for the Columbia Space Initiative. And we've actually funded them a couple times, not just Minju specifically, but projects vary. Some students, they want to go to a conference, an astrophysics conference, right? Where other students, they need the $2,000 to expand on a rocket that they're building, right? Or we also got another opportunity grant winner where they were actively building out a network for student fellowships and internships, and it curates all in one list called Space Interns. So it's very broad, and we try to pick the individuals who have their projects set on large impacts.
Very good. And as long as you're a student, there's no age limit.
No, there's no age limit at all.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice. Great question, Carrie. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Questions? Clayton.
Yes, Clayton Bish. I am one of the state's venture capitalists, and I am not afraid of talking to people, entrepreneurs and startups in the space world here in New York State. In fact, we're investors in Ursa, which is one of a space giants company in Ithaca. So I just wanted to reach out to say that if anybody wanted VC 101 or a discussion of entrepreneurship and space related, both hardware, software, and systems here in New York, I'd be happy to chat.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Great to see you again. Hope you've been well. Feel free to put any information in there if you'd like. And then I see Kim and then Clayton again. So I guess Kim. Was that it? Kim, did you raise your hand or was that a mistake? Oh, oops. Well, you got there anyways. So thank you for joining us. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? All right, so we have put a lot out there in the chat. This kind of wraps up 8 hours of Space Day programming. We started at 11 a.m. With SSPYs. They had a fantastic event with their Women in Space empowerment table. We look forward to partnering with them in the future. We had a fantastic Eclipse workshop with Dan Snyderman for the Rochester Museum and Science Center. We want to thank him for his time and expertise. 2 o'clock, we had an interview with Grant Blaisdell from Copernic Space, which is doing really interesting work with digital assets and the space finance sector. It was a really interesting conversation. We hope you tune into that later. We had a 4 o'clock event, a STEAM workshop with NASA Solar System Ambassador Robin Vernuccio. That was great for kids. So thank you all the chats in there. We really wanted this to be as diverse and accessible as possible for people from all different backgrounds and interests across the state of New York to come together and realize that they're not alone. Lots of other things are happening in space here in New York, that there is a community here that you belong to, and we welcome you to join us. Think about what you would like to see in the future. This event we started planning a couple of months ago. Now we have a full year. We have new partners. We have some specific goals in mind for what we think the space ecosystem in New York should look like in the future. It's been an absolute pleasure partnering with all the different organizations along the way. Alex and Dr. Peck at the NASA New York Space Grant, you guys have been absolutely excellent to interact with the last month or so. Space Rig, I know Ian was on the call earlier. They're fantastic. Rocket Star, Mike is great. A lot of these folks are in the Slack channel. The Slack channel is open to everyone. You don't have to be CEO of a space company or something like that. If you're interested in space and want to do something about space, you can join the Slack channel, interact with these folks, talk about various events. We will be putting all this content up on YouTube. We'll be having some future discussions. Stay tuned for updates about our in-person event in New York City area this fall. We think we may already have a space picked out. We just got to figure out what exactly we want to do for the event. So yeah, again, on behalf of Empire Space, thank you to everyone who joined us. I will turn it over to Evan to see if he has any final thoughts as my co-founder and partner in crime.
Nothing really to add. I'll just echo Pat. Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate the attendance here, the engagement. And obviously thank you to our sponsors and the people who helped us put these events together today. We couldn't have done this without everyone. So thank you.
All right. Unless there are any final questions, thank you all very much for joining us. It was an honor and a privilege to have your attention tonight. Thank you for making the first Space Day New York a fantastic success. We are very, very happy with how everything went.
We want to thank you again for joining us for this Space Day New York Town Hall presentation. Thank you for watching. To learn more about Space Day New York or to volunteer for Space Day New York 2024, visit spacedayny.com. And we leave you with this question. Right now, we are writing the next chapter of the story of space in New York. What would you like to write? If you're interested in learning more about Empire Space, reach out to us at empirespace.org or email info@empirespace.org to learn more. Thank you very much. Have a great day.